Great. Well, it's really wonderful to be with all of you today. I'm a native Buckeye, so this is always my favorite workshop when I get to speak to people from the Midwest and from my home state. So welcome to the workshop today. As Adam mentioned, my primary focus is on threats to US elections that come from overseas and how this foreign interference impacts our election security, our domestic media, our social media, and of course, our campaigns. We know that foreign adversaries want us to be divided and susceptible to inflammatory information online, and they want our system to be in chaos. So these attacks are happening all the time, even though we can't see many of them. Today, I will cover the types of attacks on our elections that we've seen come from other countries. I'll discuss some ways we can spot these attacks and protect ourselves against them. And I'll touch on the US government's actions to counter these threats, including in our upcoming midterm elections. The Department of Homeland Security, we've talked a lot about DHS today, they actually warned about this threat in a June 7th bulletin. The summary is up there on the screen. They said that, quote, foreign adversaries remain intent on exploiting the dynamic threat environment to sow discord, undermine US democratic institutions, and promote or inspire violence by their supporters. In order to achieve these goals, hostile foreign governments have launched several types of attacks on our democracy. Cliff Newman discussed many of these earlier. Now let's go over them in some more detail now. So first, we've seen the hacking and public release of campaign documents by a hostile foreign entity, with the goal of influencing an election in favor of a preferred candidate. Think WikiLeaks or the Clinton campaign DNC emails, which were hacked by a Russian organization working with Moscow's intelligence service. Those hacks and the emails released, they were released sort of strategically during the 2016 election, became a key topic in that election. You can see on the screen a photo of a protester holding up a homemade hashtag DNC leak sign, actually, I think at a Bernie Sanders rally in 2016. Second, we've seen public misinformation campaigns waged largely on social media designed to create division in our country. Foreign actors create fake accounts, and then they appear to be real Americans, those fake accounts. They appear to be real voters, but they're actually trolls or bots. Those accounts then promote propaganda, conspiracy theories, or outright lies, which are then often shared by real people thinking that they're true. This could cover any topic, including where to vote, how to vote, and the integrity of our elections. This is where hostile foreign governments try to rile up Americans against one another and make us distrust our own elections outcomes by promoting these false conspiracy theories. Here's an example of this kind of attack on this slide. @10 GOP claims to represent Tennessee Republicans. But it turns out that this account was not affiliated with the state party or with any Tennessee Republicans or any Americans at all. @10 GOP was a Kremlin-linked bot, and the entity ended up as part of a federal grand jury indictment for essentially waging information warfare to help a preferred candidate. The account did this by posting inflammatory and inaccurate information and conspiracy theories, all the while pretending to be an American political organization. We've also seen the scanning and probing of voter registration rolls and other voter data by Russia. There's no public evidence this data has ever been altered, but it's an area that folks are most certainly keeping a close eye on. Cliff Newman mentioned this a little bit earlier. There's also, of course, the ever-present threat of ransomware attacks by criminal groups tied to hostile foreign governments. In general, foreign ransomware attacks have been on the rise. We've all read press reports about them, I'm sure. There's no reason to think that elections infrastructure or political entities or third-party vendors you may use for elections-related work won't be targets too. Finally, foreign intelligence services around the world are working to penetrate political campaigns across our country to gather information about candidates, even low-profile candidates, that they can then use against American politicians after they win elections and become our country's leaders. US security officials are particularly worried about what foreign governments might do around the upcoming midterms. All of us are very focused on those elections, of course. Here's one example of a scenario that security officials are worried about, just to give you a sense for the kind of threat that they're focused on. Russian hackers could breach a local county voter registration system. But here's the plot twist. They actually want to get detected. They want to get caught. They would then post information online, take responsibility, unlike 2016 when they blamed third-party hackers. And then other Kremlin-backed forces would amplify the problems on Facebook and Twitter with the goal of churning up angry reactions and playing into this distrust that has been sown with the American public about the integrity and security of our elections. They would just try to amplify that. Russia is not the only country undertaking this kind of activity, but they're definitely the most prolific and the most aggressive that we've seen. And despite international outcry since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Russian embassy accounts around the world have actually received more online engagement since the invasion than before. And they've used that to promote Russian propaganda on a whole host of issues, including American elections. There are other countries who are active in this space as well, including Iran, China, and many others. So there we go. For all of these reasons, elections infrastructure has been designated as critical by the US government, which allows DHS to provide prioritized cybersecurity services at the request of state and local elections officials, which jurisdictions should definitely take advantage of. Each player in the election business on this slide represents a potential vulnerability to one of those types of attacks that I just outlined above. This is a lot to secure, many different things here up on this slide. So what can we do? This is the crucial question. So first, we have to use good operational security, as we heard earlier from Cliff Newman, have multiple layers of security and not just one single point of failure. Second, we have to train ourselves, our campaigns, our political parties, and our elections officials how to detect foreign-based disinformation, including how to spot bots by doing things like looking for hyperactivity, more than 50 to 60 tweets a day, or unlikely popularity for a very recently started account. So here's an example up on this slide of this kind of bot. In August 2017, an account called @KirstenKellogg posted a tweet attacking US media outlet ProPublica, the left-leaning media outlet. This account had very low activity, only 76 followers, and was not following any other accounts. But its post was retweeted and liked over 23,000 times. So chances are that that's not real and that it's likely coming from overseas somewhere. These are the kinds of things to look out for. All of us should look out for them. And crucially, as Sarah just underscored, to avoid sharing. Tech companies also have to do more to help combat the proliferation of disinformation. Social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter have civic responsibilities as they grapple with disinformation that flourishes on their platforms, much of which originates from overseas. There are many ways companies can track where online information comes from, including this famous anecdote from the 2016 election about Facebook ads dealing with our election that were actually paid for in Russian rubles. The two ads on this slide from an outlet called, quote, Being Patriotic with American Flags, those two ads were actually two of those that were paid for in Russian rubles. Pretty good chance those actually weren't American political organizations. Twitter recently announced its policy for the 2022 midterms, which is designed to combat misleading claims and false information about voting access and elections results, what it's calling its civic integrity policy. Twitter is bringing back what it calls, quote, pre-bunks. So they first launched this in 2020, in the 2020 election, but it's to help debunk misinformation proactively and preemptively ahead of time. Twitter also outlined a process for dealing with tweets that include false information about how to vote, misleading content intended to intimidate or dissuade people from participating in the election, and misleading claims intended to undermine public confidence in the election, including false information about the outcome. Tweets that fall into these categories could be flagged with tabs, notifying users that they may contain false information. We've probably all seen those tags on Facebook or Twitter posts. As a result, some posts won't be able to be liked or shared on the platform. Some may be taken down altogether. But as we all know, the challenge is so great that inevitably they won't be able to catch everything. Finally, because of the seriousness of the threat, we and our allies have to use whatever tools we have to pressure countries like Russia if they continue to meddle in foreign political systems. The director of the National Security Agency and head of US Cyber Command, they're led by the same person, General Paul Nakasone, who's up there on the screen, said recently in an interview that we are going to be full bore against foreign interference and influence in our elections. He said he is very focused on whether ransomware will disrupt the upcoming midterm elections, and that the US is conducting a series of operations right now to prevent that from happening. After the foreign interference in the 2016 election, which we've talked a lot about today, Cyber Command was given more authorities to conduct offensive operations overseas. And he said that his team conducted more than 24 operations of that exact nature to get ahead of foreign threats before 2020 elections. So clearly something that Cyber Command is focused on. They're also helping other countries combat Russian cyber crimes. They've deployed teams of cyber defense personnel to 18 allied countries, including Ukraine, to identify threats to critical computer networks and train those countries on how to protect themselves, which is a really important collaboration effort that's been happening. So many parts of the US government are involved in this fight. The Justice Department recently unsealed an indictment against a Russian citizen who was working on behalf of the Russian government, who allegedly orchestrated a years-long foreign influence campaign that used various US political groups to sow discord, spread pro-Russia propaganda, and interfere in elections in the US. This is so important for those of us at the state level to remember and pay attention to. From 2014 until 2022, this Russian citizen recruited political groups within the United States, one in Florida, one in Georgia, and one in California, and exercised direction over them on behalf of Russian intelligence, providing financial support to the groups, directing them to publish pro-Russia propaganda, and coordinating and funding direct action by these groups within the United States. The threats are everywhere, and we just need to be on the lookout for them. The US State Department has also offered up to $10 million to anyone who provides information on foreign interference in US elections as part of its Reward for Justice program. It's set to announce new targets related to cyber threats against the 2022 midterms in the coming weeks. The program aims to gather information that leads to the identification or location of any foreign person or entity, so group, who is engaging in foreign elections interference. And this is interesting because this is a tool we've traditionally used to go after terrorists or international cartels or drug dealers. And now we're using it to go after foreign interference in our elections. The US government has immense tools at its disposal, but I want to end with this really important point. If you take one thing away from my presentation today, a lot of the most important work actually happens at the state and local level with all of you. We need to keep working together to secure our elections, and crucially, not to sow doubts about the legitimacy of those elections, because we cannot give hostile foreign governments these openings to exploit, which they've done, and we know they'll continue to do them if given the opportunity. We have to protect our elections and make everyone feel confidence in that integrity so foreign governments don't have any way to sow discord more than they already are. So the threat is real. I think we have some good tools to combat it. And with that, Adam, I will turn it back to you.